All the images you see appearing on the screen were engraved on golden discs attached to probes that are currently drifting at the edge of the solar system, about 24 billion kilometers from Earth, and continue to move away from our planet at a rate of 60,000 kilometers every hour. These images are the most distant material testimonies of our humanity from our world. And they are among the very few objects made by human hands that will one day leave our solar system. Because if we take a look at the history of space exploration to list the marks we've left outside our world, we soon realize our presence in the universe is almost entirely limited to Earth's surface. Actually, only one probe has crashed on Mercury. A few rough landings on Venus, about 20 rovers that eventually landed or crashed with varying degrees of success on Mars and much closer to us. On the surface of our satellite, there are about 10 probes and a lot of equipment left behind by the 6 Apollo missions that landed there. You can still see them today thanks to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter's incredible photo. Look there, you can see one of the rovers. And that's about it. As for the roughly 15,000 satellites we've sent into space so far, the vast majority of them, which are in low Earth orbit, just a few hundred kilometers above our heads, will eventually fall back down, completely disintegrating as they re-enter the atmosphere within a few hundred years. Even those farther away, like Global Positioning System satellites and those in so-called geostationary positions, will also inevitably end up falling back to Earth within a few million years, at most, for the farthest of them. As for the small number of satellites that have been sent beyond, such as those located at the famous Lagrange equilibrium point, they should continue to orbit our star forever, in a way for eternity. Prisoners of the sun's gravitational pull, just like everything on Earth and the probes and other rovers we've landed on other planets. So, as I speak these words, of the hundreds of space probes launched, only 5 have escaped the sun's gravity and are traveling toward the edges of the solar system. They are the probes Pioneer 10 and 11, Voyager 1 and 2, and New Horizons. The only physical traces of our existence are bolted onto 4 of them, which are certain to keep drifting through space, long after Earth has been burned by the sun, when it turns into a red giant in about 5 billion years. These traces take the form of 2 aluminum plaques and 2 gold-plated copper discs, on which a few partial images of our humanity have been scribbled and engraved, set adrift in the universe like messages in a bottle. The first small portraits of humanity sent into deep space are the aluminum plaques on Pioneer 10 and 11, launched in 1972 and 1973. And bore a short message for hypothetical extraterrestrial civilizations. A naked man and woman are visible, not holding hands. To prevent this drawing from being interpreted as a single creature, rather than as 2 distinct beings. As well as our cosmic address, provided in the form of a diagram showing the position of Earth in relation to 14 pulsars. Rapidly rotating neutron stars, with frequencies shown as dotted lines, help locate our solar system in the galaxy. At the base of each plaque, the characteristics of the probe system of origin were engraved, with Earth as the starting point. The planet's distances from the star correspond to their associated binary numbers. If the Pioneer plaques are mainly known for their pulsar maps and their depiction of naked humans, the most important element found there is actually this one, which serves as a key for interpretation. It was designed to be deciphered by an extraterrestrial intelligence advanced enough to intercept the probe. This key represents the hyperfine transition frequency of the hydrogen atom, the simplest and most common element in the universe, which acts as a reference standard here. and allows us to decode the rest of the content of these plaques, to calculate the size of the figures, the period of the pulsars, and the relative distance of the planets from the Sun. The plaques on the Pioneer probes were the first physical messages sent toward the solar system's edge. And more than 50 years after being launched, they are nearly 20 billion kilometers from Earth. They are not the man-made objects farthest from our planet, because they have since been caught up to and surpassed by two other messages, much more elaborate, crafted, and thought out, which take the form of two gold records attached to the Voyager 1 and 2 probes. What was their goal? To explore the outer solar system planets in 1977. Unlike the quickly made Pioneer plaques, the 30 cm records on the Voyager probes were developed with much more care and time. Designed to be read by other forms of intelligence, they required a year of thought spent trying to create an object meant to represent a part of the diversity of life and culture on Earth. On the cover of these records, there is a diagram explaining how to play them using the stylus that comes with them. Meanwhile, all around, a binary notation is used to indicate the playback time, taking as a reference, just like with the Pioneer plaques, the fundamental transition period of the hydrogen atom. You can also find the map based on the position of pulsars to locate our planet in our galaxy. But the most interesting part is surely the 90 minutes of all kinds of sounds that are recorded on it. And I won't make you listen to all of it, because it contains 5 minutes of greetings and messages of peace, delivered in 55 different languages.
Friends are experiencing space. I pray for peace and well-being.
12 minutes of natural sound, drawing a soundscape of our planet and our daily lives. With a jumble of footsteps, heartbeats, crying, laughter, kisses, barking, birdsong, crickets, frogs, whales, hyenas, elephants, and chimpanzees. Or even the sound of waves, wind, rain, volcanoes, and even earthquakes. And to this rich and joyful cacophony are added 27 pieces of diverse and varied music, traditional songs from China, India, Africa, and Bulgaria. Cauchois, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and Stravinsky. There's also electronic music, blues, and Chuck Berry. The Voyager Golden Records contain more than just sounds. There are also images and text encoded on them, which can be reconstructed by extraterrestrials by following the instructions given in the upper right part of the record covers. The 115 images you are about to see on the screen are mainly intended to outline the main points of our knowledge about life on Earth and its inhabitants. They form a kind of small portfolio of our humanity, where you can find, encoded in analog form, a number of chemical elements, mathematical formulas, and biological cycles of DNA. Photo of a page from Newton's Principia Mathematica. But also landscapes, animal and plant species, and lots of Homo sapiens from all cultures and backgrounds doing things. Many images are included, with indications of scale, time, size, mass, or chemical composition. In this photo, taken from Earth's orbit, where you can see the Red Sea and the Sinai Peninsula, the composition of our atmosphere is indicated. There are also maps of the solar system, photos of Earth, Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter, and even data that could help us locate ourselves again, our position relative to the nearby pulsar, as well as an image of the Arecibo radio telescope, which was used in 1974 to send a powerful radio message to hypothetical extraterrestrials. And next to all these images, which you can find in full at the end of this episode, there is one of the most surprising elements. A 1-hour recording of the brainwaves of Anne Druyan, the wife of Carl Sagan, the astronomer who initiated the project, whose brain activity was recorded while she was concentrating. To think about the history of our planet, its inhabitants, the problems they face, or even about falling in love. Finally, there is also a long message read by Jimmy Carter, and here I will give you a translation of the ending. Because it's surely the most surreal piece of speech ever delivered by a human leader. This is a gift from a small distant world, a testimony of our sounds, our science, our images, our music, our thoughts, and our feelings. We are trying to survive our own time so that we may live into yours. We hope that one day, after we have solved the problems we face, we will join a community of galactic civilizations. This record represents our hope, our determination, and our goodwill in a vast and awe-inspiring universe. Almost everything has been said. Because the most troubling thing about these probes is surely that their poignant content will most likely never be found. These school bus-sized probes, like messages in a bottle without recipients, are already just grains of dust. Given the immensity of interstellar space, it's hard to grasp how difficult it would be to find a probe like Voyager 1 in the vastness of space. Imagine that if we could shrink our solar system so that our star is the size of a small marble, then Neptune, the last planet in the system, would be reduced to the size of a grain of sand, and its orbit would be nearly 45 meters away. Voyager 1 would be the size of a water molecule and 5 times farther away. 46 years after leaving Earth, Voyager 1, the most distant man-made object, is just 160 times farther away. Earth to Sun is just under 23 light hours from us. And even though that may seem enormous in cosmic terms, it's barely the doorstep of our solar system. Because Voyager 1, like the other probes mentioned, remains within the Sun's gravitational influence, and the seemingly phenomenal speed at which it's moving away from us is absolutely insignificant compared to interstellar distances. So it will still take another 40,000 years of traveling through space before it can hope to pass near another star. In short, these capsules carrying a part of ourselves for extraterrestrials are almost certainly lost forever. And yet, even though the chances that these bottles will one day reach the shores of another consciousness and be understood and decoded by another intelligence are astronomically low, they have a reason to exist. Because in reality, these messages do not call for answers in their content. In fact, you won't find any questions in them. They were, in a way, made for the beauty of the gesture. They are testimonies, hands reaching out to eternity, and above all, meant for ourselves. The simple act of throwing these bottles expresses the desire to say, "We were here." In this sense, these records and plaques matter less for the search for extraterrestrial life and more for what they represent to us. Postcards from our world sent into the cosmos. And simply bearing witness to our existence, to our fragility, by expressing our desire to leave a mark, to tell our story across the barrier of time and space. Like the pyramids, these objects are monuments that gaze at eternity and cast a shadow of our humanity into a universe indifferent to our existence. They exist mainly to connect us to something greater. For the simple pleasure of knowing silent pieces of our history and world drift in the cold vastness of the cosmos. And we survive. In this sense, if not preventing contact with extraterrestrials, these bottles launched into the sky might help us find ourselves a little. Because when we look up at the vastness of the universe, wondering if we are alone or if other minds inhabit this ocean of nothingness and light, and we start to think about what we would want to say, it forces us to look at ourselves and think about the reflection of what we want to project into space. How can we describe life on Earth and the human race? Can we speak on behalf of all humanity? How do we tell our story knowing that we can't include or show everything? In fact, these messages in a bottle are like distorting mirrors reflecting what we choose to show about our humanity. We discuss hope and usually present ourselves in the best light, like a species aware of its weaknesses and divisions and full of goodwill. Besides, what isn't on those plaques and discs also says a lot about the sometimes narrow-minded customs of the era in which they were created. Thus, the nudity of the two human bodies, which was chosen to represent us stripped of all artifice, sparked a number of outraged reactions from quite a few prudes. And the woman's vulva, which was originally present in the sketches, was even censored by the former director of National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Office of Space Science, who feared backlash from Puritans and strict contemporaries. When they learned that Chuck Berry's song Johnny B. Good would be on the records, some American politicians were offended on the grounds that rock was, I quote, teenage music, to which Carl Sagan replied that there were still a lot of teenagers on Earth. But my favorite anecdote is this one. When the team in charge of creating the content for the Golden Record asked the record company that owned the rights to the Beatles song Here Comes the Sun for permission to include it in the project, they refused. So there are people on our planet who, when asked to record some music to send it into the depths of space, to make a speech to eternity, think about legislation, copyright, and financial returns. We really are an amazing species. Inevitably imperfect, these discs will surely remain in their cases for eternity, and although none of the pieces they contain will likely ever be played, they have the merit of existing and remind us by their presence that we are alone in an ocean of emptiness, alone but still together, embarked, whether we like it or not, on the same boat, with no other land available on the horizon. If humanity were to disappear as if by magic right now, instantly, these solitary relics would be the only material evidence of our passage through the universe, ultimately persisting beyond the limits of our solar system. Solitary relics that will continue to drift through space, most likely for a small eternity. In fact, we've had fun calculating that, given the staggering distances between stars and the tiny size of these probes. These should keep drifting through space without hitting any celestial body, for a period of time billions of times longer than the current age of the universe. By then, human civilizations will likely have vanished. And what about these gold-plated records? Gold, although designed to withstand the ravages of time and the harshness of space, will itself have become unreadable. Because no matter how strong their copper, nickel, and gold alloy is, it is continuously and very slowly deteriorated by erosion caused by the tiny but constant bombardment of rare interstellar dust and by cosmic rays. So it is believed that, under the relentless effects of this wear, the recordings should be erased within 1 billion years. In an upcoming episode, we'll show how to send immaterial messages at light speed through space. But in the meantime, I would be curious to know what you personally would have liked to engrave on these records. If you had been given free rein, tell me all about it in the comments.